a special meeting. We're back in session now. The purpose of the council meeting this evening, and the reason why it's a special meeting, is we have all 5 councilors here. And tonight, we're going to continue the conversation about the roundabout sculpture and hopefully land a decision tonight. Okie doke, I see a few people here in the audience. And what we'll do is I'll be calling on for public comments at some point. But firstly, let me just open up about where we've been, since I see some new faces and I'm sure people are watching.
Mayor, you also have on the agenda regular public comments for this meeting versus just for this item.
Oh.
It's number 4.
On agenda.
Also open for public comment not related to this agenda item. Seeing none, I'll get back into our conversation. At our last meeting, which was on April the 17th, relative to the discussion around the roundabout donation, we spent a great deal of time talking about process. The process in our town in terms of do we have one, do we not, relative to accepting donated art. And I think we all walked away with that understanding that the town of Snowmass Village does not truly have a great process. It's great to have a new problem that you've never had before. The downside is it creates a lot of discussion about, well, why don't we have a process? So we learn. Everything is always a learning experience for all of us. For our town, what we've done in the past relative to public art has been almost nano in terms of what a community, such as Snowmass Village, that is considered a world-class town and one that's becoming far more the world-class destination that we want. In the past, we've purchased art. I remember a period of time where our town had absolutely no dollars for public art. And when we did the paver project over in Base Village, there was a lot of people who spent hours getting pavers donated and paid for in order that we could do the paver project. The project out front, the 3 rings, that represents transparency. That was very tedious, and that was a juried piece, a call for artists. That's when we did have some money and had some money in our budget for art. As a member of the community, I think somehow we failed to get our arms around the importance of what public art and what events that create spirit and create culture can do. We spend a lot of time talking about skiing, but we don't spend a lot of time as a community talking about the mind, body, and spirit, which can be a whole rebirthing experience, and a lot of that can happen through public art. We've provided a lot of input options on this particular piece, whether it be Facebook, whether it be Twitter, whether we've had public sessions, and we've had quite a few. We've heard from a lot of people. And what have we learned over the pluses and the minuses? We've learned that everyone's taste in art is very different. Oh, surprise. Huh?
Sorry, I'm getting a message from the public that it's not showing up on Granicus. Sorry. But there's people that are interested.
Can you email Doug for me? I'll get it.
Shall we hold until we...
It just says special meeting and it says coming up, special meeting.
That's the decision of the chair. It's compliant with state law. It's being recorded.
I also have it on mine.
Thank you.
Is it showing up?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it takes a delay if they just got on, so. 45
Okay, we'll
seconds.
continue.
Okay.
I just heard you say it's not showing up.
It's got a 15-second lag. So.
Okay. She said she got it.
Great.
It's coming up now. Sorry, go ahead.
So one thing we've all learned, we've had pluses and minuses, It's hard to look at a picture in the paper. Sorry for those of you who are here from the newspaper, to really understand the spirit of the donated piece that we will make a decision on hopefully this evening. But one thing that I learned from a video that Alyssa sent to us is one of the points of public art is to invite controversy and hopefully open us up more for conversation about what various types of art represent. I've heard a lot of comments about the 3 rings out front. That has created controversy big time. The whole issue with the stone sculpture down by Horse Ranch, that created controversy. The point is that we need to embrace the spirit of the conversations that have occurred. One of the thoughts that I have is one of our goals that we've talked about here at this table is really moving the performing arts forward in our community. One of our goals, because we see that as a touchstone for those who come here to recreate and those who live here. We don't see that happening yet, other than Thursday night cultures and a few other little events. And I do hope over time that we can continue to embrace the spirit of having performing arts and public art. As I looked at this piece of art being considered this evening for a donation, what it says to me and what I know from other people in the community who are interested in donating and contributing to our public arts is to not accept also sets a precedent for current prospective donors and future. This story is on TV. It will be on YouTube. This donor never wanted to be recognized. He wanted to be anonymous. He wanted to be silent. He wanted to do something for Snowmass Village. It's a community he loves, and he's been here many, many years. So to me, it's a very generous donation of art. We know the SAB met last week, as we knew about. I'm excited to have read what Clint had in his note. We do know that staff is prepared tonight to show a 360 of the art with a story pole that went up today that they filmed. So we look forward to seeing that. And I do think it's extremely important that tonight, at the end of the discussion, the donor has asked us to make a decision, go or no go, because there's money that has to be raised yet that he's willing to take on. And the timeline that was set for this piece to go in is July, and that was not from him. That is based on some construction issues for our town. So with that, I'll ask if there's any other council person that wants to make a few comments before we go into this conversation.
Wait for a moment.
Okay.
I'll hold my nose.
Okay, Clint, you want to take it from there?
I don't have much more to add, Madam Mayor. I mean, as you all are aware, this has been an ongoing conversation. Tonight's meeting, the final documents, or a final version of the documents were presented last week, April 17th, and you asked that the discussion be continued to this evening. The donor has asked that the decision be made today and has offered us something in writing saying that if the decision is not made today, that the offer will no longer be valid for the town. We did talk to him, John and I talked to him this morning, and would like to make sure that everybody knows that the agreements that are in the packet that's been reviewed are acceptable to him, and there are a number of terms outlined in those agreements that he's read, has understood, and I think provides a level of flexibility to the town. I think the provision that's probably most likely to be talked about this evening is the provision that says along the lines of that the sculpture is intended to be put in the roundabout, but then the town, with its discretion, can move it, and it's the town's absolute discretion if it ever needs to be moved for whatever reason deemed appropriate by the town. All
But I
that
don't
said-
understand that, Clint, because that's not what he said in his letter.
Well, again, I think the letter was not probably as well-written, it was not as clear as.
No, it said absolutely, it's designed for the roundabout and is only to be put in the roundabout.
And so the agreement, as we talked to him this morning, the agreement, if you read the agreements that's before you for consideration tonight, says the town can move it.
Right.
And we talked to him verbally this morning, and he said, no, the agreements are fine, and he understands that the agreements allow for that to happen.
But meaning it could be put anywhere that we choose, not about moving it. It doesn't have to go there to begin with.
The agreements, the contract, or the agreement as presented says it's intended to go in the roundabout to begin with. And so that's what we represented.
But it took the time frame out, the 2 years.
Yeah, and it didn't even have that in there last week. Last week, the agreement said the sculpture is intended to go in the roundabout with the option to move if the town ever wanted to. That's the same provision we had last week's meeting as well. There was a number of discussions, I think Councilor Circus brought up, about, timeframes and minimums and maximums, and as a discussion point, but it was never consensus of the council to have that in there. So it was always been, since John's drafted it at least, to say that the
Right.
sculpture is intended to go there, and that the town's got discretion to move it. And so I bring up that point, is when we received that letter from the donor this weekend, or the email saying, we need to make the decision today, we called this morning to make sure that we understood what he meant, and what he told us verbally was the agreements as presented are acceptable and can move forward from there. So at this point, really, what the town's commitment would be, and it's a budgeted commitment already, $12,000 to put the base in, and then we'd obviously help with other types of issues with the installation of the piece. And that if the council does desire to go forward, the action of the council would be to direct staff to finalize and then execute the agreements that are in the packet tonight. If you choose not to, then simply we could take no action and the offer goes away.
Clint, it might be helpful for the listening public and for those sitting in the room about the Snowmass Arts Advisory Board discussion. Where was Planning Commission? I know that was referenced in one of the emails from one of the SOB members about Planning Commission recommendations. I think everybody needs to know where we are with all that.
So the SOB made a formal recommendation, and I could pull the timeline up, but say a month ago, and it had 4 conditions. It said they recommended taking the piece and 4 ideas behind it. At last Monday's meeting, some representative SOBs let you know that they were having a meeting on Thursday. Unfortunately, there wasn't a quorum, so they couldn't change their official recommendation. But of the 4 members that were in attendance, they all individually recommended taking the piece. And having sat through that meeting, I feel comfortable saying one of the provisions that added a level of comfort to the individuals was the provision that's in the contract that says it can be moved at the town's discretion. The sculpture can be moved at the town's discretion. And I think that provided a level of surety for the SOB members. And I think it's fair to say when this was presented to the Planning Commission, that provision also added a high level of comfort for them as well. And I think that's why, I think that was a leading provision that added to their recommendation to accept it as well.
I'm just not certain, when I've read the email that came out, and I'm sure everybody here has not read the email, and it basically says unconditionally, there's no change of location.
And again, so here's how, not trying to interpret someone else's letter. If you were to accept it, the agreements you've got before you that John drafted say that you can. And so if you approve those, he doesn't need to execute on his side. If we're misunderstanding, if our conversation with him this morning was not understood correctly, then he doesn't have to execute, and we would be in the same position. But if you are comfortable with that provision, the documents are drafted such that the town's got that authority.
But the last line of that section says, "It is expected that the sculpture shall initially be displayed at the roundabout
Yes,
at Brush Creek and Wood Road."
yes.
So it's expected, but doesn't mean it has to.
Yeah, I think just for our purposes, I think if you're gonna put it somewhere else to begin with, I think you should absolutely change that tonight. This is saying that we expect just that, we intend to put it in the roundabout to begin with, and then the town's got the authority to move it. And that's really the kind of the the way the agreement's structured. If you're comfortable with that, then that's great. If you're not, then we would need to change that agreement, and we'd find out if the donor wants to accept that or not.
Well, from what I see from the email, that the donor has made it clear that tonight's the decision.
Okay. When
Now, am I reading this wrong?
The email, yes, you are reading it wrong. After we received that email, I asked Clint and John to have the donor on a phone conference this morning and to review the email with him and to look at the legal agreements to make sure and have that conversation. So what we have is John and Clint are telling us the outcomes of that conversation they had with a donor this morning. So we can't just go by an email.
I mean, he verbally, go ahead, but he verbally let us know that he's accepting of the agreement.
I think really what he is saying in this email and what he said to us today is, initially, I want this in the roundabout. And he didn't put a time frame on it. If you want to move it afterwards, that's okay. But I think he expects it to initially be in the roundabout.
But it's not
think-
binding.
Pardon?
But that's not binding.
I think.
I think it would be underhanded to put this agreement forth and say, well, that's what you expected, but we're not gonna do that. But, and if you're not, I agree with Clint that you as a body should decide we don't want this in the roundabout, and if you still want to accept the piece, craft language accordingly. But I think that Heinz's intention is, I mean, after all, I mean, it was designed to fit in with the parameters of the easements and the sight lines and everything there. And if you're not going to display it in the roundabout, you shouldn't now. You should not enter into the agreement as drafted. The rest of it is, if you don't like it there, take it out. He reiterated at least 3 times today. The community's gonna love it when it's in, and I'm not worried about that. Now, will he be heartbroken? Yeah, but he understands that. If you're not going, if it's the town's intent to not install it in the roundabout, you should not go forward with the agreement as drafted, because it says it is expected. And to turn around the next day and change it and say you're not going to is not fair to a donor. So, that's the way I took his information in the email, and he confirmed it in the conversation today. So, that's a decision for you to make. He explains it when he says, unconditionally mean no change of location. One of the things that I don't know if he heard or thought he heard, but apparently there might have been some tangent of the discussion in the past few days about storing it and finding another place. That was unacceptable. No alterations to the structure. And he goes on to say in the email, the sculpture was designed specifically for the roundabout with full consideration of the view angles, surroundings, and limitations of the roundabout, conditions regarding traffic visibility, underground utilities, etc. We also chose a high-quality stainless steel because it will hold up the best in this climate and will cause minimum care and maintenance. So, if you as a body do not want this in the roundabout, you should redraft these agreements if you still want to accept it in another place and put that forward, rather than to accept it as drafted and not put it in the roundabout initially.
So really, it boils down, what I've heard you say in reading and the conversation that you and Clint had with a donor this morning. It boils down to, it goes into the roundabout with the flexibility to be able to move it.
I would say more than flexibility. Once you display it in the roundabout, you have the right to move it anywhere you want, return it to the donor.
So it really boils down to accepting a piece or not accepting a piece, and initially it's installed in the roundabout.
Well, if you don't want to do that, change it.
Okay.
I'm not advocating for one position or other. I'm explaining what I think the intent of those words are.
I'll stop and,
I have no further comments.
okay. Clint, I know you were going to, I think you mentioned, as I was driving up here, that staff,
Yeah,
Was prepared to-
we got a request to, see if we could put a pole up that's similarly sized, so we'll let Travis put the pictures up. Yeah. I'll just actually hand it out, well, I'll walk you through, but we've got a slideshow and we can show you the pictures that we've got to show. All it is a 22-foot bamboo pole with a digitally enhanced marker on top. Let me get the lights. But you can see, I'll let Travis kind of walk through some of these sites, and you can see, at least have an idea. You can see the red button on top, which would be the top of the 22 feet.
Yeah, it's as simple as that. That's, someone holding a 20,
We just start flipping through them so they
yeah. So we're starting looking up Brush Creek Road and working our way counterclockwise around the intersection. I'll just flip through these. Feel free to stop me. Sorry.
Go back one, please.
So now we're at Kearns Road.
Can you go back one, please? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Travis, would you go back one, please?
Sure.
And then just, coming down Brush Creek Road and stay there for a second. Okay, thank you. I'm good.
it doesn't block the views.
So it's kind of tough to see, but
Where's-
the top's right here.
Oh, okay.
You know, that clearly shows the vertical, but the width, what's the width again?
11 feet
11 feet wide?
at the widest. I got a description from,
Bottom, that's from the bottom of it, isn't it? The largest, which is to be the bottom.
sculpture, this is the artist's description. It was one of the things, Exhibit A was missing, and he provided this today. The sculpture is abstract, depicting the downhill slope and acceleration of skiing. It is constructed of 316L stainless steel and stone, and measures approximately 22 feet tall and 11 feet wide.
Okay.
So this is from Wood Road, looking down. Can you see that?
Mhm.
Further up Wood Road.
Where on Wood Road were you, Travis? Or is this just from the drone?
This is from the bridge.
Okay, Oh,
Just
okay.
down from the Viceroy.
okay.
And this is a video that I actually wasn't planning on showing just because it wasn't as helpful as we thought it would be, but.
You want to see it? You want to see the slides?
Why not?
Sure, why not?
See what kind of flying tricks that Travis can do.
It's gonna be all laggy. So the plan is to remove the trees and landscape around the sculpture,
Correct.
and there'll be boulders.
The boulders would be kind of protective type boulders to make sure a car wouldn't run into it one way or the other.
Do you know what that distance is? When I look at the trees, is that about 11 feet inside of where the trees are, or do we know?
I don't know that.
Okay,
How
That's
tall
fair
are
enough.
those signs with those, the poles with the signs on them? The, like, advertising signs?
If the sculpture goes in, the right-hand turn signs, those arrow signs, is that what you're talking about?
No, like the thing that has like the graphics on it.
Oh, our streetlights?
guy?
Yeah.
I don't know that answer. But I would, if I was gonna hazard a guess, 15 feet.
Yeah, because it looks taller than those.
does not appear that tall. It's not out of proportion. Doesn't look out of proportion. Mm-mm.
From the crosswalk in the Conoco.
You guys wanna go through them one more time, or?
Can you go back to, there was like a picture earlier on that had, like in front of the it was like looking towards the ski slopes?
Okay.
There it is.
Yeah.
So that's at the intersection from Kearns Road. Obviously.
Is there another one of those too?
From further back.
It's more up at town.
It'd probably be very helpful if you will go back to where, the one that Alyssa wanted, and if we were to have, the view plane of the buildings that are gonna be behind it too, so let everybody understand that we are gonna have tall buildings behind that red dot.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Having 12
I
stories.
know, so I mean, so if anybody's thinking, I'm just bringing this up, I'm not saying yay or nay or any of it right now, but I'm just saying that you have to understand base village buildings are gonna be,
You'll
beyond
never
the
see
red
the
dot.
mountains. You're never gonna see.
no, you're not gonna see that view you see right now.
Yeah, we're looking at the parking garage there, right?
Correct. In building 7,
In Building 7.
Mhm.
And
8, 7 and 8.
Do you know where those other new buildings come up to?
Roughly 4 stories higher than they are.
So they go 100 feet from ground, from soil level? Julianne, you probably know the answer to this. They're 10 stories, aren't they?
more like 8,
Or 11?
7 or 8 stories.
Seven.
Above the parking garage, though?
No,
No, 4.
Four.
from this level.
Oh, from this level. Okay.
So maybe they're as high as that little thing near the red dot above that.
They'll be higher than the red dot.
No, but I'm saying, right, keep going over, up, that thing. That little chimney or whatever that thing is.
Probably. I mean, roughly speaking, 40 feet taller than the existing roofs.
Okay. Okay, do you wanna, what else were you planning?
That was it. We just want to make sure that we would.
Can we do the 360? Do we have that, Travis? The 360 of the piece?
Yeah, I can pull that up.
It's been a long time since we saw this.
The 360, if you remember, is the one that's in clay, so the color's not correct.
Okay.
But everything else is correct.
So that's driving up Brush Creek. And this will essentially be the view coming from Town Hall.
Starts at driving up Brush Creek, I believe.
Right about there,
Right there is probably Brush Creek.
correct.
That's Town Hall.
Mm-hmm.
And this is coming down Brush
That'll be
Creek.
coming down Brush Creek.
Right about there, I think it's coming down.
It's probably
That's
coming out of
Space
Wood
Ridge.
Road.
Can you just stop it right there for a second? Maybe. Okay.
Travis, do you also have pictures of where we are in terms of production? I think I saw that.
It was in the.
Those are in your packet. for
Oh,
sure.
okay, okay. That's where I saw it.
And then can you stop it right there?
Okay. Okay. Do I have any comments from the public? Yeah, Greg, you want to come on up?
Hi, my name is Greg Rulon. I'm strongly in favor of this. I think it's bold. I think it's dynamic. I mean, I just came from Grand Junction this weekend. They've got horses in their roundabout. You go to Avon or Beaver Creek or Vale, you've got an elk, a bear. You know, I mean, we could put a mastodon here and it would be boring. I just think this is a dynamic, futuristic-looking piece. Of course, art is controversial, just as you mentioned Nancy Lovendall's installation down at the town park and the bulldozer driver bulldozer because he didn't even recognize it as art, and sculpture at Mayfly Park and everything. Every piece that we've installed in Snowmass has been controversial, and that's what art is supposed to do. It's supposed to evoke thought. Oh, I think it looks like this. I think it looks like this. Interestingly enough, a couple weeks ago, I woke up bright and early, and they had a piece on NPR on my radio alarm clock, and they said, and it was a long discussion on public art, and it was I found it very interesting, but the conclusion was it's gotten so bland because people are trying to get a consensus of the public on public art, and there isn't any. I mean, it's just art is by nature controversial, whether it be the Aspen Art Museum or any art museum in the world. It just, you're never going to get a consensus. I mean, we heard it on the rings out here. We've heard it, you know, on every piece in town and in anywhere, not just in Snowmass. So I think I would be strongly in favor of this. I think it's a very generous gift to the town. And with the limited budget we have, or no budget for public art, I think we'd be foolish to pass it up. And with the provision that for some reason it needed to be moved in a couple years, and you know, I think that's a pretty generous thing with given the cost and what's involved in this. I just think it's very dynamic, and we're looking toward our future in Snowmass, and I think this is part of it. Thank you.
Kimmy?
My name is Kimberly Simon. I'm actually speaking as a teacher and an artist. Just to give you a little perspective of how this might affect the public. As a teacher at Aspen Elementary School, we teach our students to appreciate art and to interpret art and to create art. Most recently in our social studies lesson, Students have to give an interpretation of their own art, how it can help the community. The sculpture that we've been using is at the roundabout in Carbondale. I would really love it if we would be able to use a sculpture that is more relevant to our students and that is also more local that they can relate to. As an artist, I had to ask myself, as a blue groomer, what does a double black diamond sculpture mean to me? I started thinking, well, what is the double black diamond that I need to aspire to in my own life? I think this reaches well beyond the ski resort and just saying this appeals to people that are seasonal or residential people that spend their time on the mountain. For me, as an artist, it's what do I aspire to be? How does this promote for myself to reach higher levels of achievement? So I just wanted to share that perspective from a teacher and an artist. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimmy. Any other comments from the public? Okay. So,
I'll make a motion to request that staff finalize and execute the agreements as written for the acceptance of this sculpture.
I'll second that, but I have a question. Does anyone need to have questions about the legal agreements?
I question the legal agreement with, even though Clint and John had the conversation with the donor, I'm basing this on the email. I know what I'm reading, the main word that strikes me is the word unconditional. And he makes it clear that this is not to be put in storage, and it's for the roundabout only, according to the email. I know this is what I'm reading in black and white.
So let's ignore John and Clint's comments for the moment.
Okay, so
Okay, so if this were to pass as written, Marky signs it, Clint signs it, and then it goes to the artist, goes to the donor, and it's not going to be executed, it's not complete until both of those entities, both of those people for their various entities sign it. So regardless of how any of us interpret that email, if Clint and John are mistaken, if I'm mistaken, if Marky is mistaken, if you are not mistaken, then the donor is not going to sign the agreement because it doesn't meet his condition. So, in my opinion, consider the fact that it really doesn't. The email itself.
I'm listening to him, sorry, I'm bringing it up.
The email itself isn't going to be the controlling factor. The controlling factor will become whether the donor signs the agreements as written.
And
Well, that's correct.
Okay.
As the agreement is as written.
Okay.
But, you know, the agreement as written is one thing, but then when I know you don't want to hear about the email, but it almost sounds like the donor is an angry man now because I feel like we're being pushed into this, and I don't think the community has had, now for me personally, this has grown on me. I'm talking about what I feel like the community feels like. I feel like the community is being rushed into this. Now, again, personally, the more I look at it, the more I think about, we've had the conversation, Marky, you and I, about is this town mountain contemporary? Well, I don't think the town is mountain contemporary. As you drive down Owl Creek Road and you see what the architect Michael Manchester's done on Sinclair Meadows, and that's the direction we're going in. We are now contemporary, and art is in the eye of the beholder. And I don't know if we've had enough time. That's where I'm kind of hesitant on thinking that sure, we could put it in a roundabout, But really, are we gonna put it in there for a year and a half and 2 years, or you think we're gonna take it out? I don't think that's gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. What are we gonna do, take it out and put it in the maintenance department's garage or something? I don't think that's gonna happen. So I think what we're making a decision on tonight, and again, me personally, this is not my opinion, I'm just trying to be the devil's advocate here for the community. And I don't think we've had enough time, that's all.
We've had more comments than I've ever seen on anything in this
But
community.
I don't, I see tonight, by the way, Rhonda, make sure these two people got bags, you know, we want people for public comment, okay? So, but in the same token, I'm surprised no one's come in on the negative side tonight to voice the opinion. I've got two
We got an
11
email
o'clock
today.
emails,
Yeah, we had emails and
right,
we've had a lot
on the
of,
negative side.
well, and you got, I don't know how many Facebook posts, how many
No,
likes.
I know.
Yeah.
And then, anyway, that's just my feeling. Again, this has grown on me. I do like it, so
So,
don't
Tom-
get me wrong here.
Tom,
I-
Let's talk about tomorrow, the future. None of us know what tomorrow will bring. We can't sit here and think about council or the public 2 years from now of what they will think of this public art. They know that we have the provision and the flexibility that if it doesn't work in the roundabout and per the agreements, the town holds the right to move it. Can I say, will the town do that? I can't answer that question because,
Of course you can't.
and
I know.
not a person sitting at this table.
No, none of us
Answer
can.
the question.
None of us can.
So, as I think about it, and all of us have debated it in our brains, we've talked to a lot of people, more calls than what you want to think about.
And we'll have more difficult decisions to make than what's gonna be really
Ex-
sitting in the round.
Yeah, and as I think about it, this is the first significant contribution of public art into this community. And our goal is, and we've talked about this in retreats, about our goal is to continue to cultivate the spirit of public art in our community. We've developed with the donor, John and Clint have, and with Saab, saying yes, if you have the flexibility to move it, you've got a wonderful donation of public art, whether we like it or we don't. Some like it, some don't. We all know that from all the emails. So you've got a piece of public art sitting there to be donated, that you have the flexibility to move, whether it be down at Town Park Station or wherever. So is it not wiser to think about,
I'm struggling with it.
I can
know-
tell you, I can
You know
tell.
I am, okay? So, I mean, again, I like it. Me personally, I like it, all right? And it's grown on me since the moment, the first time I've seen it. I'm just trying to make the right decision for the community, is all that's really what I'm struggling with.
And in my heart and soul, as I really vetted this internally, it's been about, if we want public art to move forward,
Right.
and we don't want negativism of people that will be future donors to public art, how wonderful would it be for that foundation that has been non-active to create vibe in the community, and then we, the community, because nobody knew about it.
I think, more than anything, what I probably struggle more with is the process, how
We
this
all
took
have.
place. We had no process,
That's exactly right.
okay? And now all of a sudden, we've been pushed into this, and it's not necessarily the five of us whose fault it is, or the staff. We're very fortunate to have somebody that wants to come forward and do this, and I do know the donor, and I think the world of the donor and his family, and and what he's done for the community last year with the wildfire, cleaning out the trees. And he's done a lot for the community. And everything he has done here has come from his heart, okay? And he has nothing but good intentions for the community with this. And it's unfortunate that it's kind of turned around where he feels he had to write this email that to me felt like he was a very angry man.
Well, let me tell you where I think the angst comes. You got a piece of art that is prepared to come into this town in July.
Sorry, I just got a text that says, wrap it up. It's not a missile, it's a piece of art. They're absolutely correct. Okay, so I am gonna wrap it up, and you know, let's go forward. I don't mean to make a big issue of it. I really don't. I really don't. Because again, like I said, I do like it. I just got reminded. My wife said, wrap it up. It's not firing us. It's a piece of art.
Okay, I'll listen to other counselors. We do have a motion. Do we have a second? Do I have further discussion?
Go ahead.
I mean, I'll give my 2 cents. I think that, you know, I've had a lot of conversations with people, not just people that live here, people that are in the art world, people that do community projects all over the country. And I think one of the things I realized this weekend talking with someone is that there's a huge difference between a temporary installation and a permanent piece. And a temporary installation doesn't need to go through all the rigmarole that a permanent piece does. I mean, you know, the art museum did that temporary thing on the bridge on the ski mountain, and then they have that swirly thing that's, I don't even know if it's still there. It's still there. But I think there's a huge difference. And the process thing, to me, supersedes it all. I mean, the only reason I vote yes is because I think it's a generous donation. But to me, that's not enough reason to vote yes. I think the other huge piece, you know, you referenced that video that I sent. And yes, it is supposed to invite conversation. And all public art does that because you're going to have people that love it and people that hate it. But I think for me, it's also, they say in that video that it's supposed to bring a community together and be representative of a community. And in the letters that we got from people that were against the sculpture, and I'm not talking the silly ones where they were making fun of it, I think for a lot of people, they felt like it wasn't representative of us. And that is the thing that keeps coming back in my head, and that's why I can't wrap my hands around it. It has nothing to do with how I feel about it personally. It's more of like, is it representative of us? Is this what we want to show to the visitors when they come in? This is Snowmass. I mean, I don't know that is it. And I think the fact that you had one person who said they were going to make this donation, but then had the artist give them all these different choices, and they picked among those choices, I don't know if that was the right call for him to do that.
I don't know if that was the process.
He said that. He said he had 4 or 5 different images to choose from.
I don't know.
Unless I misunderstood what he said when he was here, but that is what I took away from it, is that he had a choice of these different images and that he picked this one. And rather than go to Saab and say, hey Saab, what do you think of these 5 images? I'd like to donate one of them to the town. And maybe they wouldn't have liked any of them. Maybe they would have liked one over the other. Maybe the public would have felt a connection to a different image. I don't know, because we didn't see them. But, you know, if Saab had been in the middle of choosing the sculpture for the roundabout and they were looking at different artists and then the donor came along and said, you know what, throw this one in the ring too, it would have been a very different story. But I think it's a little bit overwhelming. It feels very rushed, and I feel very uncomfortable about it.
Okay. I've been really quiet because I wanted to see where this was going. So first off, it was Linda Reddick who said there were 5 and not Heinz, just to be correct. But everybody is talking about process, but then you change your feet and you don't complete the talk about process. You go back to what it looks like. Will it be liked? Will it not be liked? That's almost immaterial, because there'll always be people who like it, there'll always be people who don't like it. Now, let's talk about the process for a minute. Yeah, we have never had a process for accepting donated art because we never had an opportunity to get a piece of donated art, and it never occurred to either prior councils, ourselves, or Saab that they needed a process for donated art. So what did we do? We kind of did a process by seat of your pants. And it's been an up and down situation. There have been mistakes made. There have been things that could have been done better. But we have fought our way to this point. And it has been a process to get to this point. And it's been a process that has been open to the public. It's been a process where the commission that we have made responsible for reviewing and recommending has come up with a positive recommendation. So, you know, one of the things that I felt when I was on the planning board, and it was at a time when the town council was very divisive, and numerous times we at the planning commission would make a recommendation to the council and they would basically ignore it and just go off in their own direction. And I have to tell you, it made me really feel useless. It made me feel bad. It made me wonder why the town bothered to have a planning commission. I will tell you, in my opinion, that if we don't follow the recommendation of Saab, and by the way, one of the things I think that one piece of Clint's memo that we didn't speak about was the fact that initially Saab wanted to have the artist come and talk to them, come here, talk to them. That wasn't able to be worked out. But at the meeting on Thursday, there was a phone conversation with the artist. And apparently that provided a significant level of comfort to the Saab members, the 4 people that were there. So,
How many people sit on Saab?
9, so there's 4, that's why they didn't have a
So
quorum.
4 people made this recommendation.
In fact, that's what I'm trying to make clear.
Well-
It's not a recommendation.
It was a-
no,
it
it's
was
not an official recommendation.
Right. So we're not going against them then because it's not official.
Well, in my opinion, we have 4 people who said, had there been a vote, they would have voted to accept it. Plus, we have received emails from other members of Saab who said they were in favor of accepting it. So as far as I'm concerned, Alyssa, there is at least 6 people who are in favor of accepting this piece of sculpture. So coming back to where I was, I do think that it's important to really consider the support of the commissions and boards that we appoint, who are supposed to do the legwork, supposed to do the vetting. And I believe that that has been done, maybe not in the best way, maybe not in the most efficient way, but I believe it's been done appropriately so that a recommendation can be made and we can vote on that recommendation.
Okay. Any other comments?
Well, it's, we have first world problems, huh? I think it's interesting, it's fascinating to me, all the feedback that we've gotten throughout this process. There's an old proverb, right? Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. So, but what that refers to is actually grabbing the horse by the mouth, opening it up, and looking at its teeth, right? To see what you're getting. And that part of the process, we didn't go through in a public way. So that, I think, is why we're having kind of this internal consternation. And I think it's easy to read into the Facebook or the Twitter comments and kind of, it's easy for people to go to a different level on social media. There's a lot of people who think it's too big. It's, doesn't represent snowmass, as Alyssa said.
Don't like the materials.
They don't like the materials. There's a lot of subjective arguments. But as Bob just said, it doesn't really matter, because we're never gonna solve it based on that. I do think it's unfortunate that we're being dictated a gift. That part of it doesn't sit with me well. But I think within the agreement, we have the flexibility to move it. And so I think I will reluctantly vote for the donation, even if I do it with one hand on my nose.
Okay. Well, there's several things I'd like to suggest. And then we're gonna do the vote. And that is, I think we've all talked about the process. Are we done talking process?
But I think we all
all agree.
about that we would,
Okay.
it's not our fault.
And what we learn from this, and if we don't make life a learning process, we will have failed in growing. And what I would suggest is that once we do the vote, we all agree that we have our town staff, along with SOB, complete a document about public art and how we accept donations. We have one on juried art, but we don't have one on donated art. I'm gonna just look at you, because I don't wanna have any more
Yeah.
of these.
And I would like to suggest that at the same time, they relook at the process for purchased art
It's probably a good idea,
to see, and to see if it needs to be tweaked.
because we haven't accepted art, or we haven't had juried art since, gosh.
So, real quick question though, if in fact we decide we don't want it in a roundabout, who's gonna make that decision?
The council,
The new council, old
Who-
council, whatever,
whoever it
Whatever
is.
council's
whatever
here.
council's here.
Is that,
I'm not touching it, yeah, so you guys.
So, but does that have to, how would that be brought up? Somebody say, by the way, I have something to say.
Yeah, I mean, you'd agenda,
A lot of people are telling me they don't like it.
I mean, you'd agendize it, you'd have the discussion, and then you'd direct staff to address it one way or the other.
Okay.
Or we could handle it like Durango does.
okay, I'm gonna call the vote.
But are we discussing this agreement?
Well, I asked that earlier, but,
Because there was two questions that I
okay,
had.
go for the agreement. Let's make sure we have that done before we take the vote.
I hope I'm looking at the right thing. The public art agreement on, I think it's page 3 of I Legislate. Oh, hold on, sorry, page 4 of I Legislate, where it's talking about relocation, removal, or return. That last sentence, I've read it like 10 times, and it still doesn't make sense to me. Where it says regarding such action in advance, like I can't understand, I understand
Wait a minute.
what it's meant to say,
What
but,
number?
so it's
Number
number 5, it says relocation, removal, or return.
Oh,
On
okay,
page 4 of I Legislate.
Yeah.
I can't understand what that, it's like I have read it 10 times and I still can't understand it.
If the town decides not to display the art.
I
they
get
have-
that.
They have to notify the donor, which is the Snowmass Community Fund. This is an agreement just between the town and the artist, and we're agreeing to notify him of that as well. So if he has any options, remember, we don't know the contract between the artist and Snowmass Community Fund. So, because the Visual Artist Rights Act provides that, we agree to provide notice to him. He's waived them as to us,
Right.
but
But
when
why does
we,
it say regarding such action in advance? That part is confusing to me.
so that he has the right to advance his rights under the visual, I don't know their agreement. I'm just protecting him and the town so that when we terminate this waiver, it could give life to his Visual Arts Rights Act rights. against Snowmass Community Fund. That's all it is.
Okay. Okay,
Now,
I just think it
they may
sounds-
have a waiver with him as well. They have not shared that with me. What I don't want is that he had those rights, he doesn't get notice, and he comes to the town and says, hey, you violated, you didn't protect my visual arts rights. That's all it is. Previously in this agreement, he waives any and all rights under this as to the town.
Okay,
And all we're saying is, we will notify you if we
Okay.
cease to have possession of this.
so I get that, but how come then in the art donation and installation agreement, it doesn't call for notice to him?
Does.
It does.
But not in section 5, it says we have to give notice to the fund, but it doesn't say
Right.
giving notice to him.
Right.
Why is that?
I don't want to grant him any rights. This agreement is only between the fund and us.
I get it.
I don't want to grant him any rights that would allow wiggle room as to whether or not the waiver is effective. Okay? So the sequence in which these documents will be signed, the town will not sign the donation agreement or the bill of sale until the waiver's in place. And at that point, okay, so now you're into paragraph 5 of the art and installation agreement. If the town does not display it for a certain period of time or gives notice, the fund is going to decide what to do with the art from then on.
Okay.
Makes sense to me. Any other questions on the agreements? You really thought this one through, John.
Now, it's a little different with it going the way it's going.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, all in support of accepting this generous donation? Say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Hold on a second.
Oh.
Just give me a second.
Okay,
I'm gonna say aye.
okay, thank you.
I'm
Opposed?
gonna say nay.
Okay. 4-1, we're very honored to accept the donation of art. Now I'd like to have direction to staff about the whole issue of donated art and to come back with donated art.
And the SOB's already working on it, staff's
Okay.
already working on it.
Okay, then,
I think their next meeting, when they expect to have a quorum, is in June. We hope to have a draft before then at that meeting.
thank you so very much. Any other business to come forward this evening?
I just want to, I guess I just want to say, I was at a meeting on Saturday with our state representative and state senator,
Okay,
and I found it to be kind of I found it to be very interesting. It was sort of an update on some of the major issues going in the state legislature at this point, and apparently one of those was the transportation bill, which apparently is having difficulty getting out of committee in the Senate. But it just, for, I guess, the purposes of information, this particular committee is being extremely partisan in its deliberation, because, and the conclusion is that it's a partisan situation because the leader of the state Senate, who is a Republican, can't get it out using his own power of office, can't get it out of the Republican-controlled committee.
that's interesting.
But there was also discussion about healthcare, about an attempt to, there's actually a couple of bills that would try to relieve the, or reinstate, I guess, subsidies for people particularly in the western slope and the eastern plains, where there are much higher than average and much higher than normal health insurance premiums that would allow more people to apply for and be able to get subsidies going forward into 2018. So whether that comes out or not is another big problem. But it was a very interesting, I found it to be a very informative hour, and I know that we as a council had, I guess, sent a letter to CML that we were opposed to the transportation funding as it was being proposed, which was a increase in the state sales tax. It would appear that that's not going to get through the legislature. However, as I guess what we're all reading and seeing in the paper is that it may come up as a voter proposal, citizen proposal.
Thank you very much. I was at the public health meeting this last week. We have a new director of public health that is a Pitkin County employee. We still have community health services, will continue to exist. But one of the major regulations, a whole host of issues, is around gray water regulations. And we did vote to approve the regulations as were written. However, I've encouraged our environmental health officer to come and present to us what is gray water, what are the regulations, what are some of the system changes and design work going on with gray water, which I didn't even know what it was, but I do know now. But anyway, I've asked them to come and talk with us about gray water and some issues around water rights. So there you go.
The Energy Smart Contractor Expo is going to take place this Thursday, April 27th, down in Glenwood Springs. There's a keynote speaker by the name of Tom Plant. He's a senior policy advisor for the Center of New Energy Economy, and there's a lot of great little workshops, and some of the great vendors that I'm familiar with are on here. And anyway, I'm hoping that I have a chance to attend myself, but it's if you're in that area and you could spend a day, I think it's going to be a great expo.
Where is it?
It's going to be in Glenwood Springs at the Hotel Colorado between 8 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Well, that's right. And we have the luncheon with CIRSA on Wednesday.
Right.
Who's going to the CIRSA luncheon? Anybody? I'm going to that one, okay. Any other reports?
Just that the Climate Community Summit, May 18th or 19th, Clint had it in his report. I'm definitely interested in attending that, and I'll let you know on my schedule.
Yeah, if you could represent us, that would be good. I've got another conference that I chair, so.
Okay.
If we can get someone there, I think, I'd love to be there. Can't. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, Marky and I got, you haven't seen it yet, I don't think, but this email from Dan Blankenship from RAFTA talking about the House Bill 17-1242, which is the
Ooh, there it is.
place a referendum before the state's voters next November asking whether the state sales tax should be increased by 0.5% to fund highways, local roads, transit, etc. Anyways, he said the bill is scheduled for a hearing before the Senate Finance Committee at 2 p.m. tomorrow, it's the 25th, and they attached below the emails of all the people on the Finance Committee and suggest that whether we're in favor or against it, he's testifying in favor of it, that we should send a note to them. So I was thinking that maybe that letter we wrote, we should email to those people.
That's probably smart, and get it to Dan too. Okay, anything
And
else?
that's like
Okay.
happening tomorrow.
Okay,
Sorry.
any other business?
I did forward it to you before.
Okay, could I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, we're done.
Aye.
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 I don't think anyone's gonna say no.